and it literally was the happiest place on earth. Me and my brother, who was only 10 at the time, adored the rides, the fireworks, the food, just the magic in general. It was my favorite family vacation we had ever taken. However, I seemed to get a lot of negative attention. I was tall for my age and already well developed, so I would get stares from older men. I didn't think much of it at the time, but I overheard my dad mention something to my mom about a father with 2 children staring at my ass in the line of a ride. This barely concerned me though, considering where we were at. On the 3rd day of our vacation, my parents were so worn out, they didn't want to go to the park anymore. I begged and pleaded with them to allow me and my brother to head off on our own, and finally, my mother talked my father into allowing us to go and explore Disneyland by ourselves. Taking my brother firmly by the hand, we walked to the park entrance and experienced a newfound sense of glorious freedom as we walked through the gate by ourselves for the first time. It was almost like seeing it all over again in a new light. Like I said, I was completely oblivious to most things since I had grown up in a small town in relative safety. I was a nerd and nobody ever paid attention to me at my middle school, so I didn't expect them to pay attention to me anywhere else. I remember getting in line for Pirates of the Caribbean, and I felt someone else get in line behind me and my brother, and he was standing very, very close. Close enough to almost be touching my brother. Since my brother has autism, and I didn't want him freaking out because someone was so close, I decided to play the sacrificial lamb and stepped between him and my brother. However, this just made him step even closer, practically pressing up against my body. I felt uncomfortable, but I chose to ignore him as we got closer to the front of the ride. Stepping into the boat, I stuck my baby brother on the side and slunk into the middle seat. From behind me, I could hear a commotion and someone slid in next to me, the creepy guy who kept pressing up against me. It didn't take him long to continue getting in my personal space, his hand practically touching my upper thigh. I was a shy 13-year-old, and he was a grown-ass man. How the hell was I going to try and keep him off me? He would have crushed me like a bug. So I tried to huddle next to my brother and enjoy the ride. As it went on, the guy's hand went from a relaxed stance to a firm grip, his thumb digging into my skin. I wanted to cry and vomit all at the same time as my oblivious brother watched the animatronic pirates. As the ride was getting to a standstill, the guy finally turns to me and gives me a smile. At least, I think it was a smile. It was super dark in the ride. It could have been a snarl for all I knew. He mentioned something about seeing me and my brother around the park, that we looked like we were lost, and that he could give us a behind-the-scenes tour of the park since he was an off-duty park employee. He said he worked for the Tower of Terror over in California Adventure. I politely declined, and the guy finally lets go of my thigh, but kept his leg securely glued to my own. I couldn't get out of that damn boat fast enough. Heart in my throat and my brother in tow, we got out of the ride and burst onto the busy street. I didn't know what to do except get away from the creep, but he tailed me and my brother for another 10 minutes. Finally, I realized what my 13-year-old terrified self had to do. I marched up to the closest park employee, a young, short woman with blonde hair, and started telling her about the events of the last half hour. I tried to point out the man, but apparently as soon as he saw that we were going to talk to the staff, he hightailed it out of there. She reassured me that they would do everything in their power to try and find the guy, but she couldn't make any promises. We were asked to go to security and not to walk back to our hotel alone, so I could give a description of the man, which I was unfortunately unable to do because of the dimness of the ride. They called our parents, who were visibly shaken, but glad that we were okay. The rest of our vacation went off without a hitch, but my brother and I were kept by our parents' side the entire time. Even when we went back when I was 16 and my mother kept me glued to her hip the entire time, it was only when we went back when I was 19 that she allowed my brother and I to wander off again. By this point, me being my loud-mouthed, swearing self you now see before you. I guess these occurrences aren't uncommon in the park, unfortunately, and for the sake of those who are victims of something like this, I pray that you speak up, fight, do whatever you can to get away from people like that man. And to the man on the Pirates ride, let's never meet again, you pedophile.
First off, I love my family very much. I have 3 aunts, 2 uncles, 4 cousins that are very close to me. So of course, when my mother won the trip to Walt Disney World for 10, we knew we had to make a big family trip. We paid for my Aunt Bonnie and her husband Ron, Aunt Jean, Cousin Audrey, Uncle Bruce, Uncle Dan, and Aunt Linda. But we invited everyone else to come if they could pay. My family is comprised of doctors, engineers, and for God's sakes, my grandfather is an actual rocket scientist. They could absolutely pay. We planned ahead and all got on a flight that landed in Orlando at about the same time, and we got adjoining rooms at the hotel. Altogether, we took up 5 rooms. Even though all my cousins are old enough to drink, Nathan, Audrey, and I played with the doors that connected our family's rooms. It was late when we got to Florida. We didn't account for the hour time change. So my aunts, uncles, and mom, who were all older, went to bed fairly soon after we checked into our rooms. But my cousins, my sister, and I are all young and in a Disneyland hotel without parental supervision. I'll admit, we acted a little childish, but I felt happier than I had in a long time. We swam and played through the pool. My cousin Nathan got a luggage cart and raced us down the hallways like a skateboard. We took a whole bunch of soaps from the maid cart, and we didn't get caught. Sarah was being a bit of a mother hen, but she eventually lightened up and had fun too. We were all laughing so hard that Audrey wet herself. She excused herself to go change, but when she came back, she looked different. "It's getting late, and Sarah's right. We're all being a little rowdy," Audrey mumbled. "I think it's about time we go to bed." I checked my phone to see what time it actually was, and I think everyone else checked too. A big 12:17 a.m. glared at me. "Whoa, yeah, we better get back to our room," Nathan said. He pushed us back to our respective rooms, and we vowed to meet up for the free breakfast downstairs at 8:30. My sister and I got in, put on our pajamas, and fell asleep, and didn't wake up until 7:56. I woke up to the sound of my sister screeching to my mother that she didn't have enough time to put her makeup on, and she wouldn't be joining us for breakfast. My mom was trying to convince her that she looked fine, and their family, and don't care what she looked like. I got up and started my morning routine. "Who you trying to impress, Goofy?" "Oh my god, Mom, no." I started laughing quietly with toothpaste still in my mouth. "What if there's a cute guy down there and he's supposed to be my soulmate, but we don't get to spend the day at the park and start our relationship because I look like one of those stupid monster things Caitlin watches on TV," my sister cried. I started laughing harder because I imagined Goofy looming behind my sister while sitting at the breakfast table. "Don't laugh at me, just go on without me, I'll catch up." She was insistent and my mom eventually gave up. I sat down on the nice couch in the room and waited for my mom to finish getting ready. We finally got down to the breakfast area at 8:35 and met up with the rest of our family. I left to get my mom's food and to make my own from the buffet area. I was waiting for the waffle to finish cooking when I noticed something back in the corner of my eye. Curiosity got the best of me and I turned around to see what the shadow was. Mickey himself was standing a couple feet away from me, entertaining a table of Swedes. It got colder, blowing down from above, which I assumed was the AC vent sending some Disney magic into the room. The waffle maker beeped. I got the almost burnt waffle onto a plate, grabbed it as well as the rest of the food and took it back to the table. By this time, my sister had rejoined us, with her full Disney World ensemble on, except the lipstick. I swear to God, she looked like a Mac worker who gets paid commission, came by and threw everything they had on her. She had her head tipped back even when she was eating, and no one could figure out why. Finally, my Aunt Bonnie ventured a question. "Autumn, are you feeling okay?" "Oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm just waiting for my lash glue to set." She was wearing fake eyelashes to Disney World. I should have known. This is the kind of junk I have to put up with all the time. After breakfast, we went back up to our rooms and grabbed whatever we needed for the park. It only took us a couple minutes, but to me it felt like forever. I was so excited that I waited outside our room in the hallway for my sister and mother to finish getting ready. Luckily, Nathan and Aunt Bonnie were waiting in the hallway too, so I wasn't too bored. It seemed like once my sister emerged from the room, we were in the park in a matter of seconds. We were all giddy and eager to get on a ride, so we planned which one would be the best to ride first. My uncle suggested Jungle Cruise, and we all laughed, remembering the family story of him getting scared by the skipper wielding a gun on the original ride the first year Disneyland was opened. Like I said earlier, my aunts and uncles are older. We decided that the Jungle Cruise was the best bet, so we all got in line. We looked at the scenery while we waited. We got to the front of the line and packed into the boat. I was about to get on when the worker stopped me and said that there were too many people in the boat and I'd have to wait for the next one. My mom offered to wait with me, but I declined and told her to have fun. The boat with my family shoved off, and I was put in the empty single rider's line. The next boat swung around in no time, and I got in. It was basically the same ride I loved at Disneyland, with a few minor changes. I gazed in amazement at all the robotic animals and live trees. I even looked down into the green water to see my reflection. I guess I looked too closely into the water because I fell in. I felt a hand on my back, but it was too late. I was already in the water. Now, you might not think this was such a big deal, but those robotic boats are on a track, and so are the animals. And I couldn't see where I was kicking, and one mistake could result in my foot hitting a gear in the best case scenario. I thought I was just treading water, but soon I found myself downstream near the alligators. I was very scared, but I was trying my best to stay calm and not to get any of the gross water into my mouth or nose. Soon enough, an empty boat came by to pull me out of the water, and I was rejoined with my worried family. My mom took me back to our room so I could take a shower while the rest of our group went on another ride. While I was bathing, a man came to our room wanting to speak with my mom. She told me that she'd be right back, and by the time that I got out and had fresh clothes on, she was. The man was from their legal team, and they worked out a compensation for my trauma. Our entire family's vacation was now all-inclusive with $200 spending money each. I guess you could say my mom made a good deal. Thankfully, my mom had my stuff when we went on the Jungle Cruise, so I just put on my backpack and off we went to meet up with the rest of our family. We found them fairly quickly with the help of some vague texts from my sister, more descriptive texts from my cousin Audrey, a park map, and a cast member. They were deciding what to ride next. My Uncle Dan was trying to convince everyone that we should ride the train. Not the train that went around the park, no. The Thunder Mountain Railroad train. No one wanted to go on the roller coaster right then, including me. So he said he'd go by himself and meet us for lunch at the pizza place in Tomorrowland. We waved goodbye to Uncle Dan as we went off to find another ride, and he went to the back of the line. We decided to go on the Indiana Jones ride before lunch, which was a bad idea because half of our family got motion sickness. Uncle Dan didn't have a cell phone, so we either had to wait for him at the meeting place, which would make people sick due to the food, or meet him at the next ride. Our group didn't want anyone throwing up, so we went to wait for him at the exit of the ride. We figured since we had only been gone about 45 minutes, Dan would either be still in line or on the ride. We waited an hour, but no sign of him. Our family was getting really worried. Some thought the line was longer than we thought. Some thought Dan went back to his room without telling us. But the rest thought he was over to the meeting place and was waiting for us there. We sent a small expedition team of my sister, my cousin Sarah, my Aunt Jean, and Uncle Bruce over to Tomorrowland to find our lost one. We waited another 15 minutes before we got the call that Dan was nowhere in sight. Frustrated and very hungry, my Aunt Linda went over to the cast member sweeping nearby to ask for help. She didn't get to finish before a shriek filled the air. This wasn't your normal, "Oh, I'm on a thrill ride and wouldn't it be fun to scream." This was, "I woke up while they were doing minor surgery on me" scream. A deafening crack split across the sky, like thunder, except there wasn't a cloud in the sky. Everyone looked wildly around to find the source of the sound, but it seemed everywhere. Someone pointed to the ride behind us with their mouth agape. I instinctively looked. A train was falling out of the sky, directly towards the track. We ran over to where Linda was and stared in horror as the train screeched towards the ride, appearing to be on track to crashing in the car that was already on the rails. I squinted my eyes, and just before impact, the falling train stopped. It hovered for a second before gliding into the exit platform. We all screamed when we saw Uncle Dan emerge from the crazy train. He went through the exit and rejoined us. "Hey," he said. "What's going on? Did something happen?" I was in shock. He didn't remember a thing. I texted my sister to let them know that we found Uncle Dan and that we were coming over to the food place. We prompted him on our way over, but we brushed it off like we were playing a joke on him. I had a bad feeling about something, but I kept going because I didn't want to hold anyone back or miss out. Soon enough, we got our food and everything seemed to be more or less back to normal. I was halfway through my slice of pizza when I had to use the bathroom. I was still a little shook up about the Jungle Cruise thing, as anyone would be, so I asked my mom if she would come with me. She agreed and we excused ourselves from the table. Surprisingly, there was no line for the women's bathroom, so I just went right in while my mom waited outside near the drinking fountain. You know how you can sort of see outside the stall, from in between the cracks? Well, I was looking around. I normally do this when I'm anxious, and my eyes locked on the wall vent near the sinks. Something black was coming out, but I couldn't quite make it out, like it was blurred. I blinked a couple times to clear my vision, but the blurriness stayed the same. I kept looking at this bit of weirdness until some of it spilled onto the floor. It looked like the end of one of those cheesy Grim Reaper outfits kids wear on Halloween. This struck a fear in me I've only felt one other time, but I knew somehow that I couldn't let it know I was scared or even saw it. Trying to keep my cool, I called my mom in while I watched the thing coming out of the vent. As soon as I heard her footsteps on the linoleum, the vent creature evaporated like smoke. I got of there as fast as possible, and was going to tell the others when the speakers crackled to life. Attention! The park will be temporarily closed due to maintenance. We are sorry for any inconvenience. We packed up our food and headed for the nearest exit. I noticed while we were waiting in line to get out, a couple of guys wearing black shirts and khaki pants run from a door out into the park. I think they were park security, because on their belts they had guns. The line moved quickly after that, and soon enough we had our hands stamped. We got back to our rooms and I took a nap while we waited for the park to reopen. My mom woke me up after they made the announcement that the park was open again, and I was ready to go back in a flash. When we got back in, one of the first things I noticed was there was ropes around the entrances to the single riders lines. All in all, this was a weird trip, one that I'll never forget. I was about 6 or 7 when we took a family holiday to Disneyland. I was a fairly aloof child, and stranger danger was something that had been drilled into us at school. My mom was paranoid about going off with strangers, and was convinced that I was a target, being a blue-eyed blonde kid. All I wanted was my freedom to run around. From day one, I had a Velcro strap around my wrist, with a cable linking me to my mom, who wore the other end on her wrist. I was effectively on a lead. A week at Disney on a lead was hell for me, and probably for my parents too. Nowadays, you could call it ADD. Back then, it was called naughty. If I wasn't trying to undo the strap, I was barking like a dog. I was a joy of a child. The last day there, I had calmed down. Well, I was speaking like a human again, rather than a dog. I begged and begged for my parents to let me off the lead until they finally gave in and said yes, I could take the strap off, but I had to hold one of their hands. Fair deal. All went great to begin with. I stayed close to my parents, held their hands. As time went by and it became clear that I wasn't going to run off, I was allowed moments of freedom. No hands. There were so many exciting things to see, all my favorite Disney characters waving, and my favorite music playing. We began to cross an open area, which I think was generally towards the exit of the park. I was still hands-free. My attention was firmly fixed on Minnie Mouse, who was ahead of me. My dad grabbed my hand. I stuck to the rules. The deal was that I had to hold my parents' hand, so off we went towards the exit to leave. When my dad started running, I began to run too. I wasn't sure of what we were running to, but I was a hyperactive child, so in my head was yay, running. I then heard my mom scream, my name from behind me. I looked over my shoulder to see my mom, my brother, and to my surprise, my dad chasing after me. I felt the hand holding mine tighten and I looked at the man I thought was my dad. He was a mid-50s man with gray hair and a gray beard. Not my 40-year-old dad, with black hair and no beard. Creepy dude never once looked at me. His face was blank and he looked calm. My little feet brakes came on out of shock, and I became a lead weight, which along with the people who stopped around us due to my mom screaming was enough for my sprinting family to catch up with me. Would-be child abductor then clearly decided that he didn't fancy his chances against my dad, dropped my hand and disappeared. My dad chased him and my mom and brother grabbed me. I can't remember much of what happened afterwards. My dad was built for comfort, not speed, so he didn't catch the dude. My mom was hysterical. I was gutted because this meant I was never being let off a lead again. I think my parents saw the police out there, and they said there were a number of attempted abductions around that time at the Disney park. Disney child abductor. Let's not meet again.